Hi everyone and welcome to Joe Reviews. Do you have an older iPhone and are trying to decide if this is the year you should upgrade? Every fall when Apple releases a new iPhone, it can feel tempting to upgrade. The new features Apple markets look better than what your phone currently offers, but the question remains, are those new features worth upgrading to? You've probably come to realize it's usually not worth it to upgrade every year, but you want to upgrade when there's been enough updates and changes that warrant spending money on a new phone. I recently upgraded from my iPhone 12 Pro to the 15 Pro Max. Now, I was really torn about upgrading as I wasn't convinced there were enough changes to upgrade. However, I pulled the trigger, and despite some instant buyer's remorse, I've been using the 15 Pro Max for a couple of months. I can say it's been one of the best phone upgrades I've ever had. Wait, okay, admittedly that's a strong statement, especially considering on the surface, it doesn't look like there's any big changes compared to the last couple generations of iPhones, but all those little changes add up like compound interest, and the result is something truly different. Let me explain. Before I get into the upgrades Apple made, first I'll cover one of the best things about a new iPhone, the unboxing. There's always something so satisfying but hard to describe about unboxing a new phone, especially when it's been a couple of years since your last upgrade. Anyways, start off by peeling off the tape on the back and open the box. The iPhone, per usual, is sitting face down. As you can see, I went with the blue titanium. Last time Apple had a blue color was for the iPhone 12 Pro, which is what I have. We'll see how these two look side by side in a minute. Besides the phone in the box, there is a new braided charging cable, along with a note about no longer needing a SIM card due to eSIM. There's also a few more documents, and of course, the Apple stickers. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro Max side by side with my old iPhone 12 Pro, obviously the first thing that sticks out is the size, but beyond that, the new cameras are much larger than my iPhone 12 Pro. The camera bump sticks out considerably more. Physically, the bump doesn't affect much. The only time it really stands out is if you have your phone on a table and you try typing on it, you'll notice some wobble when touching your phone. The new blue titanium color looks a little darker than the previous blue Apple used. Personally, I kind of prefer the old color blue versus the new blue. To me, the old blue had a bit of gray mixed in with it that I prefer more. What do you guys think? The new titanium frame gives the chassis a bit more of a dull appearance versus the glossy stainless steel look. Despite the matte finish, the 15 still smudges easily with fingerprints. Switching from stainless steel to titanium allowed Apple to save on the weight of the iPhone. Compared to last year's model, the iPhone 15 Pro Max weighs about a half ounce less, but comparing the Pro Max to my iPhone 12 Pro, it weighs about 1 ounce more. I think it's tough to notice much of a difference in the weight between the 12 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. There's a slight difference you notice when having one in each hand, but otherwise, I don't think most people will be able to tell the difference. While the difference in weight isn't noticeable, there's one difference that took me some time getting used to. I'm talking about the larger screen size. While on my iPhone 12 Pro, it was easy to operate with one hand. I could easily hit anywhere on the screen with my thumb and not feel like I really had to stretch to reach any spot. With the 15 Pro Max, I find myself needing my other hand to help out in certain situations. For reference, I'm about 6 feet tall and the length of my hand is about 7.5 inches. I've always had my Messages app in the top left corner of the iPhone. Now that I switched to the Pro Max, it's difficult to reach all the way to that corner on the screen with just one hand. I'll either have to adjust how I'm holding my phone in my hand or use my other hand to reach. Since I use the Messages app quite a bit, maybe I'll move it to another part of the screen that's easier to reach, or switch it to the action button, which I'll discuss in a little bit. If you're someone who typically uses the smaller iPhone and is thinking of going to the larger screen, pretty obvious, but I'd recommend just going to a store and testing out the phone before buying it. Besides being a little tough to hold due to the larger size, I was a little concerned that I'd have trouble either keeping the phone in my pants pocket, jacket pocket, or other places where I normally store my phone. So far, it hasn't been much of an issue, although I don't think I could ever go to a larger iPhone if Apple decides to release one someday. It barely fits in my chest pocket in my jacket, same with the cup holder in my vehicle and on my treadmill. Over the last 8 weeks of owning the phone, there hasn't been a time I regretted going with the larger phone. I like the bigger screen, it makes watching videos a bit more enjoyable. I enjoy having the extra real estate to scroll through my feeds and browse online. I personally don't think I'll ever go back to the regular size iPhone again. Okay, next is one of the biggest selling points Apple makes every year with a new iPhone. Every year Apple makes incremental improvements to the camera. This year the Pro Max saw the biggest upgrade, the ability to shoot 5 times optical zoom. This provides you with clear close-ups when shooting from a distance. Compared with my iPhone 12 Pro, the cameras on this new 15 Pro Max are much better. I took some comparison shots between the two so you can see the upgrades made in 3 years. The 15 Pro Max can shoot up to 48 megapixel photos compared with only 12 megapixels for the 12 Pro. To me, the 15 Pro Max just takes a clearer picture and handles low light areas better. I'm really impressed with how clear photos looked when zoomed in 5 times. This is where the Pro Max really stands out in terms of clarity. In the 3 years, Apple made some great updates to the camera in terms of features and overall picture quality. However, I don't think the updated camera alone would provide enough of a reason to update. With a larger iPhone, it's nice to have more area to watch movies, browse the internet, and game. The screen size isn't the only thing that increases. The size of the battery increases as well. After 3 years, my iPhone 12 Pro was struggling to make it to the end of the day without being in the red. The 15 Pro Max, compared to my old phone, has significantly more battery capacity, as you can see by the chart. I was impressed with how much more battery gain there has been when comparing it with the 12 Pro Max as well. Now, by the end of the day, I'm at typically more than 50% battery life remaining with the 15 Pro Max. While my 12 Pro did have some battery degradation, it still held up well for 3 years of life. However, with my old phone, depending on what I'd be doing later at night, I'd have to plan on when I'd be charging it again. Now, over the last 8 weeks of owning the 15 Pro Max, I haven't had to charge it more than once in a day. Something new came to the iPhone last year, which Apple spent a lot of time advertising. They got rid of the notch and replaced it with Dynamic Island. When it first came out, I thought it was more of a gimmick, something to entice people to upgrade, but I've come to find it useful. I like that when I have a timer set, it appears in the island with a little indicator that shows how much time is left. Also, I can have music or a podcast playing, and that will show up in the island at the same time. To get further information on either app, I just click on the island. I think Apple did a great job with the animations for it as well, whether it be for Face ID or an app disappearing into the island. The only complaint I have with it is that typically when I'm scrolling a web page or anything else, if I want to quickly go back to the top of the page, I'd click at the top edge of the iPhone. With Dynamic Island, it seems to be more particular about where to touch in order to quickly go back to the top of the screen. Sometimes I accidentally click on the island and it launches me into a different app. It hasn't happened a whole lot, but enough where I've really had to be deliberate about where I touch at the top of the phone. Moving on to another feature that was new to the iPhone last year, the always-on display. Like Dynamic Island, I didn't think this would be all that big of an update, but it's been quite useful to me. I like that I can quickly glance at my phone and get 3 pieces of essential information: the time, date, and temperature outside. At least that's what I put on my lock screen. You can choose from a number of widgets which display the information you like. I just find the always-on display useful if my phone is ever out of reach and I want to know the time or see what notifications I have. I no longer have to stop what I'm doing. I can quickly glance at my phone and keep working on whatever I'm working on. Okay, now some major updates Apple made this year. The first change, Apple did away with the Lightning port, thanks to Europe, and replaced it with a USB-C port. I wasn't too excited about this change. I just thought about all the Lightning cables that I have stashed away in different places that are going to be useless to me now. And while I haven't taken full advantage of what all USB-C has to offer, I'm glad Apple made the switch. You can transfer data from your iPhone to an external drive at speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. However, the cable that comes with the iPhone 15s only allows speeds of up to 480 megabits per second. You'd have to buy a separate USB-C cable that supports those kinds of speeds. I don't plan on spending more money to transfer data faster. Most of my videos I just airdrop anyway, but for some people who shoot a lot of 4K ProRes video, the supply cable may be too slow for them. Another advantage of having USB-C on the iPhone is you can use your phone to charge other devices such as earbuds, phones, and much more. I haven't found myself having to use this feature yet, but I think it's great, especially for a quick charge on your headphones if they're dead, when you're on a trip, or you just get to the gym. New to the iPhone this year is the Action button. Apple really hit on this feature as being a quicker way to access some of your most used apps. I thought it was an interesting idea to change the normal switch people have been used to for years and replace it with a button for dedicated shortcuts. This wasn't a huge selling point for me. I really didn't think I would use it that much or change it from the standard mute operation. This was one feature that my initial reaction to was correct. I still only use the Action button for mute and unmute. I tried to use it for my camera, but I felt like I never used the button more or that it provided a greater benefit. Reminds me a bit of the touch bar for the Mac when it offered a lot of potential, but never really provided you with much better productivity. While I'm sure there are some people who will find the Action button to be a great help, it really hasn't made a difference in the iPhone experience for me. While the size of the phone and the cameras were noticeable changes before even touching the phone, there's another change that's subtle, yet you notice the difference right away. Going from one application to another in the iPhone 15 Pro, you can instantly tell it feels a bit snappier. Apps open quicker, and in part that's thanks to the new A17 Pro chip. Apple claims it has up to a 70% faster GPU than the iPhone 12 Pro. While most of the chip upgrades are designed for a better gaming experience on the iPhone, you notice a difference just about everywhere. As you can see, the iPhone 15 Pro Max opens apps just slightly faster than the iPhone 12 Pro. While the difference between the two when comparing side by side seems small, after using the 12 Pro for 3 years, this was one of the biggest differences I noticed right away. Now, as I've been using the 15 Pro Max for a couple months, I don't really notice it anymore. I think if you're someone who hasn't upgraded in a few years, this will be noticeable to you. One final thing I wanted to cover that was a big issue with specifically the 15 Pro Max when it was released, the overheating issue. There were many people complaining that their phones were overheating even when they weren't running a bunch of apps at the same time. Some people had issues with their iPhones overheating when they were just browsing online. Since then, Apple has released a software update, and that has pretty much taken care of this issue. I never experienced the overheating issue, thankfully. The biggest issue this caused for people was battery drain. As I just mentioned, Apple took care of this issue with a software update, and it shouldn't be an issue for anyone looking to purchase a new iPhone. So now that I covered some of the biggest new features and updates in the iPhone, am I happy I upgraded? I think I knew the answer to this question within the first few hours of using the 15 Pro Max. For me, it was the right decision to upgrade. But there should be an asterisk next to that statement, because the real reason I'm happy I made the upgrade to the new iPhone isn't due to any specific features exclusive to the 15 Pro Max. It's mainly due to upgrading to the bigger screen size. When I go back to holding my iPhone 12 Pro after using the new phone, the 12 Pro seems so small, and everything looks small compared to the Pro Max. If I were upgrading from the 12 Pro to the 15 Pro, no changes in screen size, I don't think the upgrade would be worth it. There's no killer feature that the 15s have that's worth spending $1,000 to upgrade for. Now that smartphones are at the point where they're making incremental changes every year instead of large improvements when they first were coming out, you can get by with your current phone for longer and not really miss out on much. But what do you guys think? Are you upgrading, or have you upgraded to the new iPhones? Do you think it's worth it? Leave a comment below, and while you're at it, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next review.